Today, we are going to explore how to set up serial ports in the SCADADroid. Serial ports are used for several reasons. 1. Many legacy control systems only have serial port interfaces. Serial ports were widely available in the 80s and 90s, and some of the equipment is still in use. 2. RS-485 serial ports can go over 4,000 feet, and therefore devices can communicate at a further distance and on a cheaper cable than using either fiber optics or Ethernet with repeaters to get the distance, albeit at a slower rate. And 3. Serial ports are much cheaper to develop and less complicated from a manufacturing perspective, so many manufacturers use them for digital communications.
So in this video, we are going to set up the serial port on the SCADADroid R2A+. So to start with, you go to the System and Settings and give it a minute to load. And then you go a good ways down, probably about 2/3 the way down, and you will see the serial interface. Click and add a serial port. So your types here are RS-45, which is what we'll be using today, RS-422, which is a 4-wire version, and RS-232. And then the baud rates can go up to 115 kilobaud. Today we're going to use 9600. Being Modbus R2, we're going to stick with the defaults, which is 8 bits, no parity, 1 stop bit, timeout of 0.1. and 3 retries. Note that it is multiplexed, so you could have one serial port being ID 0 at 9600. You could have another serial port set up for RS-45 at 115. You can do another one at RS-232 at a different baud rate. And you can do this pretty easily. It's just that it will multiplex, so it'll do the first one and then the second one and go back. So you have to be aware of that for time. So for today, we're just doing the one. Once this is set up, we go over to the Modbus tab and we set up a polling record. So under this Modbus Client, we're going to add another Modbus Client. So our choices here are either Modbus TCP or Modbus UDP for Ethernet, in which case you would put the IP address in, or Modbus RTU. And then when we're doing this, we pick out what type of registers we want to poll. We pick out the data type. So in our case, we're just going to do unsigned 16-bit registers, but we can do longs. We can do floats or reels. If you're doing reels, you have the chance of switching around the bytes and the words to fit the format. In our case, we're just doing the unsigned. And then we're going to pick out, start at register 1. We're going to do 10 registers. And the way to see that this is polling is to come over here, and you can see that we've already got the send and the receive, and we see the values for those 10 registers up here. Additionally, we can see that it's up and the communications is good. From here, those 10 registers, you can come in and go straight to making alarms. So in this case, scroll down to Modbus alarms. You can add a Modbus alarm. The ID is the only one that we've got, which is the ID 0. And then we can pick the register. If you're pulling a holding register and you want to pick the bit, then you can go into that. And then you can say whether it's high or low. If you're pulling the whole word, then it would be like that. And then we have the ability here to have the alarm set to change based on either a fixed value or based on a tag or based on a Modbus register. So in some applications, the alarm level changes. So now you can dynamically change the alarm level based on what the condition is. And this would be changed from the PLC that SCADADroid is communicating to. Additionally, you can use these as tags. So we come in here under the tags and we add a tag. We can give it a name like pressure. We give it a units such as PSI, and it's Modbus. It's float, and then we come over here and from Modbus we say that it's a holding register because that's what we set up. It's register say 2 and block size is 0 because we only want one register. So once you start looking at this, then you can come to the scale here And we can say that a value of 0 is 0 and a value of 10 is, in our case, we can keep it as 10, being linear, or you can scale it if it's 4095, like if it's a raw value, and then say that the tag value is 10. So this is where you scale it. I'm not going to save that, so the scaling will stay 1. The trigger here is used for MQTT. So if this was PSI and we had a change of 0.1 PSI, then it would send out and trigger that alarm and publish it to the broker. If you come down here, you can see the active values. So right now the active value is 3, and these are kind of not used for like a pressure. But for a discrete, you would see the number of cycles as in the number of starts of a pump, for instance. And you can also check out the frequency if it's a digital input or something like that. And that's pretty much how the brief part of the SCADADroid works for pulling either Modbus R2 or Modbus TCP, and set up the serial port under the settings, set up the polling record under the Modbus tab, and then use it as either tags or alarms. We can also use it in triggers and actions if you want to start like totalizing flows or something like that. And you can also come over here to reports. You can have a report, and I already forgot the tag, but I think I called it pressure. So we have pressure, so I can come over here to my report and call it a pressure report, and come over here and configure it. We want it to be either just the tag of the pressure on the interval, or we can do min-max average. So here we're going to put in pressure, and it is case sensitive, so you have to make sure this matches the tag that you made. And if you want to do more than one, like if we had flow, we could do flow, that type of thing. In our case, we only have pressure. We want to do it as a daily, or we can do it as a monthly report. On the monthly, what it'll do is for that day, it'll give you the min, max, and average. And then daily, we want to do it, and this is the time resolution, so we can do it every 5 minutes, whatever you need. We can start at this time, and then we put in here the contact from the phone book that you want the email report sent to. So basically, this would send a daily report of the pressures, and it would record every 5 minutes and send it in a CSV file to the email address of the people in the phone book.